Hey there, everybody. How are you? This episode is brought to you by BarkBox. It's the one time of the month that my family all gathers around to open the mail together. Get a BarkBox at the door. I'll wait until my wife gets home, and we call the dog over. Dog has a seat. Watches us open, see what is in the BarkBox. So much fun, treats and toys and all that stuff. But they're giving us a special code this month. If you want a free month when you sign up for a 6 or 12-month subscription, go over to getbarkbox.com/Josh. That's getbarkbox.com/Josh. Get, G-E-T, bark, B-A-R-K, like what a dog does, box, because it comes in a box, .com/Josh. Let me tell you that every month BarkBox paw picks the best all-natural treats. It's a play on hand picks. So you get it? Who writes this copy? The best all-natural treats and innovative toys to match your dog's unique needs. You tell them about allergies. You tell them whether your dog's a heavy chewer. You also tell them the size of your dog because they don't want to send your 120-pound Rottweiler Chihuahua toys. Doesn't make any sense, right? We've been a big believer in BarkBox for a couple of years in this house. Rufus has lived with us for a bit over 5 years now, and we enjoy it all the time. Edibles are always made in the USA or Canada. Some of them are even human grade, so you can share with your puppy. It's a great way to try out treats and toys that you might not otherwise have an opportunity to try because they're taking them from small businesses across the country. You can't get some of this stuff in PetSmart. You gotta go ahead and try it out here, and then if you need more, you can always order it from their BarkShop site. Get a new theme every month. Sometimes it's Bark Ball or a Brooklyn Hipster. Safari was a recent one that we got, and a lot of happiness in a BarkBox. Free shipping, free returns. You don't like something, a puppy doesn't like something, all that stuff. Again, if you sign up for 6 or 12-month subscription, you get a free month added on. Go over to getbarkbox.com/Josh. That's getbarkbox.com/Josh today. Today's podcast is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Buy your domain name, build your website, or use any of GoDaddy's business tools and save 30%. Go to trygodaddy.com/Josh. That's trygodaddy.com/Josh and save 30%. Now, I have been using GoDaddy for 17, 18 years now. I first registered. 8thcircle.com was my first one. I gave that up a long time ago. But joshshear.com and many, many others that I have used or registered or helped other people register have come through GoDaddy. GoDaddy is the world's largest technology provider dedicated to small business. It's the largest domain registrar, 24/7 support, and I actually like calling their support. I don't like calling many people at all, and they're always really helpful. Everything you need to get your business, personal website online. Either way, go to trygodaddy.com/Josh and save 30% today. Today's podcast is brought to you by bombas.com. Get 15% off your first order at getbombas.com/Josh. That's getbombas, GETBOMBAS.com/Josh for 15% off your first order. Bombas is an online retailer of premium, high-performance athletic leisure socks for the whole family. These socks have been engineered and designed to look better, feel better, and most of all, perform better. I don't know about you, but I only wear socks 2 times usually. One time is when I'm beating the heck out of my feet working out, and the other time is when I'm beating the heck out of my feet in lodge If you are a Mason or are familiar with Masonic ritual, you know there's a lot of up and down and moving around, especially when you're going through the chairs. You know what's even better? For every pair you purchase, Bombas donates a special pair to those in need. And that pair has been engineered for the recipient's specific needs. So far, almost 1 million pairs have been donated to date. Go get bombas.com/Josh. That's GETBOMBAS.com/Josh to save 15% off your first order. Okay, I hear you. That's enough of the ads. Come on, let's get on with the show. Hey there. We are taught in Freemasonry about the 7 liberal arts and sciences. And those are grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Interested in the first 3 primarily for this episode and in general. I mean, I think that arithmetic and geometry and music and astronomy are all important, but my daily life is often consumed with reading and writing, which make grammar, rhetoric, and logic important to me, and we're taught about them. And if you're learning ritual right now, if you're learning the Stairway lecture, maybe skip over this part because I'm going to synopsize instead of use the language that we use. I just don't want your brain confused with the wrong words if you need to learn the right ones. But grammar teaches of sentence structure. It makes sure that everything's in the right order. We can understand each other. Rhetoric teaches us to speak well. Speak like an influencer, speak fluently, speak strongly, persuasively, prettily even. And logic helps us derive points from previous points. And this is actually in current study, this is a branch of mathematical philosophy. It would be in the philosophy departments at most universities. It would not be in a writing department or an English department or a communications department. And logic is often expressed in equations, given A with these attributes of B, and C with these attributes of D, and E with these attributes of B, explain how E and B are related, or how E and A are related, and that kind of thing. And you use arrows and some short words, but not any meaningful arguments, which is interesting because we later take A and B and C and D and E and make paragraphs out of them. We replace them with concepts, and we have to more deeply define those concepts. And we work our way into logical fallacies sometimes. We argue for the absurd extremes and that kind of thing. And there's going to be a link in the show notes over at joshshear.com to an interesting episode the folks at Masonic Roundtable did on logical fallacies. They've also done a couple episodes if you search their site, theMasonicRoundtable.com, for stuff on rhetoric and some of the other. I think they did geometry, and they've done some of the 7 liberal arts and sciences as shows. But I say this because last week, what's interesting to me this week about grammar and rhetoric specifically, well, and rhetoric really, is what happened last week with the healthcare bill. And as you probably know, if you need a quick synopsis, what happened was the House leadership, well, specifically Paul Ryan, I'm unclear on how this came together. It seemed like it was never going to pass. But Paul Ryan and the House Speaker and President Donald Trump worked on some healthcare legislation that was meant to repeal Obamacare, offer some stuff, reduce the budget. The first version they came up with would have cut about $350 million from the budget over 10 years. And some people thought that it offered too much. And they actually went back, and once they talked to as many people as they thought they had to talk to, they came back with a new proposal that cut healthcare for the same number of people, about 24 million over the next few years, and only saved 100 something million. So it kept the same number of people uninsured as the previous version, but cost $200 million more. That one also wasn't going to pass. And then Thursday, the president said, you know what, just either pass what we've got or let's just move on and forget about it. Now, I don't think that good legislation can be written in however long it took to write. I think this took a week or two. If we take the possibility that some of the president's staff has been working on this since he was inaugurated, he said this was going to be a first priority. So even in 2 months, it's hard to write good legislation. When Obamacare was pushed through, remember, most of the tenets had already been tried. It was Romneycare in Massachusetts. It was actually written by a Republican and just basically scaled out nationally. The budget works a little bit differently. Some of the programs work a little bit differently, so they had to tweak stuff to make it a national program. And people knew they didn't like it. People on both sides of the aisle. And it's been the law of the land for long enough that, somebody could have been writing and discussing actual reform over the last 7 years, and nobody did. Here's the thing: when you're in Congress, either the House or the Senate, you're a public servant, and sadly, a lot of time, especially in the House, is spent on re-election campaigns. And one, you're not going to write new legislation if you might not be around to vote on it and take the credit for it. And two, if you spend your time doing that, then you're not doing some other stuff, and some of that other stuff might be important, but some of it might not be. Regardless, nobody was actually writing it, and it's the real problem. You can't write a new program in 2 months or 2 weeks and hope that it gets through. And then, even worse, try to bully it through. Just vote on this or forget about it. Sunday after the well, it wasn't even a vote. The bill was pulled from the House floor without a vote because why why be embarrassed by not having a vote? Sometimes you got to just try, but that's another discussion. Got an email newsletter from my congressman, Buddy Carter. He's a Republican here in the Georgia 1st, and it said, Obamacare is a disaster, and poo on us for not getting it passed. And I think that he's lazy for doing that, and I let him know. I'm going to read you the email I sent him. It's also available over at joshshear.com, but I'll read it. And the one thing I do want to say before I read it to you is I make a point in here of saying that my vocabulary is larger than average. Now, I don't make that point to say, listen to me, I'm smarter than the average person. I make that point to say that I had many other words at my disposal, but I chose to use the words in here that I use because I think they are pointed correctly. And you'll see what I mean. Congressman Carter, you write in your most recent email to constituents, March 26, 2017, that Obamacare is a disaster, and you list many reasons why that may be true. You also blame a small number of your colleagues in the House for failure to pass the AHCA. If a small number of your colleagues were against the AHCA, it would have passed. At least 218 of them must have been against it. The problem with dwelling on the faults of Obamacare is that you create no solutions. Obamacare was always imperfect, and nobody, Democrat or Republican, has tried to fix it or work out any of the kinks in the past 7 years. The proposed version of the AHCA failed because the president rushed together a new bill and tried to bully it through the House with a pass it tomorrow or forget about it dictate, rather than spending the time working with the majority of the House to write good legislation. It's going to take some time to write good legislation. If it means gut Obamacare and start over, then do that. Don't just pick apart what you and your colleagues don't like and hope it works out. Look, I'm a healthy 40-year-old man with a healthy wife and so far no children. That makes me fairly immune from whatever comes down the pike over the next few years. Even if we're blessed with a child or two, we're in pretty good shape. My parents are not getting any younger, and their premiums are way too expensive under Obamacare, but they would not have been eligible for coverage under the previous system because a bad back or a previous rotator cuff surgery would have been flagged as a pre-existing condition. We're not sure what would have changed for them under the AHCA because nobody bothered to tell us what's in it other than it's better. I want you to understand something before you read the rest of this letter. I'm a writer by nature and do a fair bit of writing by trade. I have a vocabulary roughly 3 times that of the average college graduate. I say that because the words I'm going to use are very strong and you should know that I'm picking them purposefully. Ready? Get it the fuck together. Your constituents know Obamacare isn't working. We're subject to it, unlike you and your colleagues who have federal health care. You're not struggling. We are. You don't have to tell us Obamacare is a disaster. In fact, we'd really like it if you found your own descriptor. We've heard that one before. Chernobyl was a disaster. By that metric, Obamacare is at best annoying. While you're coming up with words, try some that mean something. Here is what you said about AHCA in your email. The legislation contains the critical reforms necessary to deliver relief and a patient-centered healthcare system with the choice and control needed to empower patients. In case you need someone to translate your fancy speech for you, that says AHCA contains changes that will give patients power. Give me some details, please. You don't fix a broken system by calling it a disaster and then hoping you can speak vaguely enough for long enough that people will cheer for the new one. Do some fucking work. I know it's difficult. Remember that you are a public servant. You represent us, but you work for us. It's not the job of your constituents to make you feel great about yourself. It's the job of your constituents to ask you to do great things, even if it takes sacrifice and hard work. Even God never promised us the fruits of our labor, only the labor itself. Now, take a deep breath, then decide to take some responsibility for working together with 217 or more of your colleagues to write some legislation that's good for your constituents instead of your re-election campaign. Yours, Joshua Shear, Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, I said fuck twice. Well, I said fuck once and fucking once. And, I'll link up in the show notes something I wrote about in defense of cussing. It's part of the voice I grew up with. The words are strong and pointed, and I think that they hit their mark. And they're part of my vernacular. They're part of the language set I use. I don't tend to use them gratuitously. More to denote anger and frustration. It's just in my general life. And frankly, I think that some people who use different words, who use replacement words for cuss words instead of choosing not to use an interjection. If you say heck or darn, we know what you mean. We know that you mean hell or damn. It's not like you It's not like you spoke around the. It's not like you picked a different word set. You just picked a different word to do the same thing that you might call me lazy for doing. So just take that as a piece of perspective. Anyway, I don't want to belabor that too much, but that's what's really on my mind, that people are not taking into consideration anything other than yelling on both sides. I think we're really at a point where if anything is going to work, we need to work together, and we need to shed these jerseys that say DNR, and we need to be willing to sacrifice time and energy and maybe even re-election. And it'd be great if we could term limit people. I think that 5 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate would be enough. That guarantees that you're working with 2 presidential administrations. Even if we changed the House to be 3-year terms and made it a 3-year limit, we know that the Constitution can be changed. Even if you're a strict constitutionalist and you think that the amendments are set in stone, just remember that they're amendments. They were changes to the Constitution. I think the comedian Jim Jeffries pointed that out. He's not even American. Probably gives him a little better perspective. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on from here. I had a great conversation with Kelvin Ringgold, my partner on the JKWD podcast. Go subscribe to that at jkwdpodcast.com. There's the one that comes out. This podcast comes out on the 30th of March in 2017. The next episode of JKWD will come out on Monday, the 3rd of April, the same year. That'll be episode 43. If you go check that out, it's interesting because we didn't plan to record the podcast. We often get together and we talk for an hour and a half before we actually record the podcast. I think we realized as we're about 45, 50 minutes in that that we were recording the podcast, and that we were going to have to go back and do some editing work, take out some names and stuff. But I think it's a really excellent episode of the podcast because we disagree on something and we just move on. We each give our viewpoints, and we move on, and we're still friends. What do you know? I think that there are some people, particularly those elected, who could take some pointers from us. Hope you did something nice for somebody in the past week. We gave some money to a friend whose puppy has cancer. We know the dog well. Pepper's a friend of Rufus. We didn't get out to Backpack Buddies this week, but we'll try next week. I know school's winding down, but we'll have a couple more opportunities for that. And I don't know. I hope you're having conversations, and I hope you're helping people, and I hope you're doing great things. Just want to thank sponsors. You might have noticed that we have real ads and stuff this week. We'll try to make those shorter for upcoming episodes, but we had to make everybody happy for their first episodes. You can get a free month of BarkBox. GetBarkBox.com/Josh. 15% off your first order at GetBombas.com/Josh. 30% off anything you need for your new website, for yourself or your business. Try GoDaddy.com/Josh. I appreciate you being here. March is among the best months yet. We're heading into our year anniversary almost. We've been at this quite some time now, and we're doing great. I want to thank you so much, and I hope you have a great week.